The Subaru Outback Wilderness Edition. This is Subaru's most capable off-road variant of their Outback currently sold. This is quite literally for the man or woman who wants to go outdoors and pitch a tent with their Outback. So in this video, we're going to walk you through the laundry list of mechanical engineering improvements, some of the interior and exterior improvements or refinements, and not to mention take this thing for a drive. So enjoy. Before we talk about the interior, let's talk about some of the exterior changes Subaru's done to this Outback for the Wilderness Edition. Starting with the front and rear bumpers, they're all new. They have improved approach and departure angles, not to mention a tougher looking styling package. You have more exterior unpainted black plastic over the wheel wells. It's supposed to protect the paint a little bit better. You have a roof rack that's supposed to carry up to 700 pounds of human being when you put a literal tent on the top of this thing. You have all new wheels with a more aggressive off-road capable tire and an exclusive paint scheme to this. You have this great blue with matte black vinyl found throughout, and you have some interesting gold bullion colored accents. Those accents also carry over into the cabin, which we'll talk about next. The cabin itself is going to be largely unchanged from a regular Outback, which is honestly a good thing. You have all the great visibility, practicality, and usability found in a regular Subaru Outback. But you have the added benefit of some ruggedization, specifically in the seats. These are now a more water-resistant material. The con of that, of course, is they don't breathe as well, but if you are going outdoors, they should be easier to clean. The interior styling of the cabin, though, other than some accents and wilderness badging found throughout, is basically the same. Speaking of that, this still carries over all the cons as well when it comes to usability. You have the same infotainment screen. It comes standard in this vehicle. It's this giant, like 11-inch tablet that looks initially impressive, but however, in actual use cases, it's not that good. It's slow to react, it's relatively low resolution, and requires you to interact with it with touch controls for nearly everything. Specifically in the HVAC controls in the wintertime, it's kind of a big problem because the screen itself works very, very slowly when cold. This also still has the piano black plastic around the shifter that basically comes pre-scratched, but thankfully, at least your steering wheel controls are physical and easy to use, not to mention the fact that the built-in safety systems that come standard on the Outback, a Wilderness Edition trim level, work great. They are somewhat invasive, but if that's what you prioritize, it's a nice feature that these come standard. That said, let's head into the shop, put this thing up on the lift, and walk through some of the engineering changes. Mark, we're underneath the Subaru Outback Wilderness Edition. Tell me about it.
Yeah, all I know is this thing is powered by adventure.
Damn straight it is, Mark. This is the most capable Outback they currently sell. They have done quite a few things. So this is on, what does Subaru call their global architecture?
The Subaru Global Architecture.
Wow. So that's what this thing has, or is on. It's largely based on the regular Outback. However, they've changed some key components. They've added the world's smallest skid plate up front here. They have raised the suspension by almost an inch, so this now has 9.5 inches of ground clearance. They've retuned the dampers and springs accordingly. They have retuned the CVT because this has a more aggressive final drive ratio than the regular vehicle, which now allows this to traverse up to a 40% incline grade, which is actually is really, really substantial. This still has their symmetrical all-wheel drive system, which has been retuned, but it does have torque vectoring. And I think that's pretty much about it from a mechanical perspective. This comes standard with their 2.4, which makes 260 horsepower and 270-ish foot-pounds of torque. And of course, it goes through the most outdoorsy of all gearboxes, a CVT.
Hey, nothing says performance like a CVT.
Yeah, physical gears aren't for people who adventure, Mark.
Well, the other thing I want to talk about, Jack, is they are moving towards the future. So let's take this for the drive.
All right, Mark.
Jack, I think I'm stuck in a ditch.
You're not, Mark, because you're in the Outback Wilderness.
You're kidding.
And we're in the wilderness of middle of nowhere, Illinois, where we work and live.
Yeah, if you get stuck in this thing, you got some serious problems.
Putting that skid plate to work.
Oh, yeah. So obviously, this is a lifestyle vehicle. Jack said it correctly that this is the Subaru equivalent of what you'd get for like a Jeep or a Bronco, the new Broncos. It is unquestionably on the soft side. It is like driving around a building. It feels big. It feels soft. And I love one thing about it. This thing feels so much taller than the last one. I just put my foot under this because there's so much ground clearance, and then I put it under my XC90, and granted that's got air ride, but it doesn't maintain that high ride height all the time, and there's more ground clearance here than most SUVs and even some of the midsize trucks.
When you're going to Whole Foods or your local farmer's market, you can tower over all the lesser CUVs and SUVs.
But it's not an SUV.
It is not.
It is
a wagon.
It's a wagon. And the visibility.
Sorry, it's a tough wagon.
Oh, it's a tough wagon. Yeah, because they don't paint the plastic on the side anymore. But no, seriously though, you're going to get this because it is soft. It's very easy to drive. It's sedate, and you can see everything. Like, I really don't feel like I ever need to rely on the electronics in here. I could just turn my head and see out of the side. It doesn't feel like I'm in a coffin. It feels bright, airy, and that's part of the factor that makes this more whimsical and a happy mobile.
I can't believe I'm going to say this. I really like this thing. I've spent a lot of time in this. I've had to do quite a few errands, and I've had to visit family members, and this is a car that I get into and I don't think about, which is perfect. The only complaint I have is the drivetrain. And look, if you're an Outback person, you're a Forester person, and you're still buying them, the CVT doesn't even bother you. To me, it's a big downer, but
it's got a WRX inspired 2.4 liter and CVT transmission.
And all the unpainted black plastic of the new WRX.
But it's quick. It really is quick. The turbo power of this is what we talk about with the Eco 4 poppers. It's tuned to give you instantaneous kind of torque where you need it. I've never felt like I could just pound this thing. It's more power than probably 95% of their customer base even needs.
If you're buying like a RAV4 and you're comparing it to this is going to blow the RAV4 away. The con, though, is fuel economy. It sucks.
It does. And the CVT is a big downer compared to something like the RAV4. It has this fake rubber bandy feel as it's trying to simulate shifts of a traditional automatic. But really, you're not going to notice that unless you're putting your foot to the metal. On your daily drive, it is smooth. It is floaty in almost sometimes a negative way depending on the pavement, but there's never any drivetrain or any shock that comes from the road into the seat, into the driver and the passengers. I like that. I just think if you are expecting a little bit more of a controlled driving experience like some of the other SUVs and CUVs where you have instantaneous like turn, you can just see here just subtle inputs. You're like it's like I'm on a waterbed, But again, this is about giving you that lifestyle feel, that ground clearance and all that. It's not about
limit handling.
Yeah, nobody's driving that.
If you are the supposed target demographic of the Wilderness Edition, and you do go off-roading, you go hiking, you do take your CUV, SUV on light trails, or you live in the Midwest or the Pacific Northwest where you don't want to have to worry about snow or inclement weather. Day one, you can get in this thing, not worry about having to put snow tires on it or chains.
No, absolutely not. I mean, that's what's great about it. This really is an all-weather, all-purpose vehicle that does almost everything, and it's got the ground clearance and all the other things to go with it. And I drove the last generation of this on off-road courses from our press events, and it can handle all the mid-sized truck off-roading. Obviously, you're not going to drive like a monkey.
Yeah.
You still got to take it at speed, a competent speed, so you don't damage the underbody. But it really is not a faux, it's not a fake setup where it's like what Kia does. Like, oh, this thing's so off-roady in their marketing. This really does do a lot of that, and it follows through on that mission.
The last thing I'm going to say before we get into the final thoughts, Mark, is this thing has personality, unlike the Equinox, like the Jeep, little Cherokee, not the Grand Cherokee, and some of the other like MPC CUVs. This has some personality about it. Whether you like it or not is kind of irrelevant. At least you'll somewhat remember this once you get out of it, unlike most of its competitors that instantly put you to sleep or are entirely forgettable.
Great time, Jack. Let's head into the shop, talk about final thoughts.
All right. Final thoughts on the Subaru Outback Wilderness Edition. If you are a man or woman who is looking for a off-road capable CUV/wagon with a little bit of personality that you can quite literally pitch a tent with, look no further. And besides, there's a lot to like about this thing. Again, it has personality in a segment that is largely soulless. It has a ton of usable cargo space, a very plush ride, and historically good residual values. But there are some negatives. First, it has a CVT. Second, it is a bit polarizing to look at. And lastly, it does not get the best fuel economy. In my driving, I got about 20 miles per gallon. But with that said, if you are looking for a off-road capable CUV/wagon, this should be on your short list. So, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon.